I'm so excited to have you here.
Thank you. I was going to say, well, anything I say can be held against me in a court of law.
It all will, 100%. So, I'm really happy to have you on. Like, genuinely, I like our relationship a lot. I would like to communicate with you more, but it's really tough. But I'm happy. Like, I don't remember the last time that we sat down for 2 hours or however long and just talked. You know?
Yeah, it's been a few years.
Yeah, it seems like a crazy thing to do, though. Like, I don't know, my form of communication, personally, I would never sit down and talk to someone for 2 hours. That seems crazy.
Yeah, well, I know we talked at St. Louis, but not for 2 hours. But we had our own little chit chat.
Yeah,
nice.
For sure. That was nice.
Yeah.
So, Ma, please introduce yourself. If I was to ask, who are you? What's your answer?
Well, I am Barbara Martinez.
All right. And then, so you have your doctorates, right? So
yes. A doctorate in occupational therapy.
Yeah. And you're weird, right? Like, you're one of the people that enjoys school.
Yes, I do. Yeah, I love school. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No, okay. So I know that you're interested in the educational field. You were a teacher, right? Like, your education background is really interesting. Can you walk me through kind of what elementary school through all the way to doctorate was like for you?
Okay, so elementary school started here in the United States because I came right before school started. So it was weird at the beginning, elementary school, because of that transition. And transitioning, I was always very sick, I guess, because we went from very warm climate to very cold to New Jersey for a few months. So I started late, and then because I didn't speak the language and didn't know the basics, it was just very difficult at the beginning. But when we went back to Miami, I was in a private Catholic school for, I believe, like 2-3 years maybe. And then I transitioned into public elementary school. And, did the typical, back then it was called, it wasn't called middle school. I already forgot what it was called. Oh, junior high. So it was elementary, junior high, high school. In 10th grade, I was in a gifted program, and it was really nice because they took us to the different universities around, and I was introduced to occupational therapy, which, if you can imagine, almost 40 years ago, no one knew what it was. I mean, as it is now, a lot of people don't know what it is. So,
I actually didn't know that. So yeah. It was 40 years of like medicine? Like, that's how long occupational therapy's been a thing?
No. I've been an occupational therapist almost 40 years. So I meant 40 years ago, no one really knew what it was, but because of that program, I was, I knew I was going to do something in the medical field, but, I was looking at maybe psychologists, physical therapy. I didn't know about occupational therapy until we did that tour and I was introduced. So, I got a scholarship. Back then, it was only a 4-year degree, so a bachelor's, and then 9 months of internship. So.
Oh, wow. 9 months.
Yeah, because you had to do 3-month rotations. Now they don't do, because back then we had to do a psych rotation, a pediatric rotation, and an adult rotation. So 9 months of free labor. So, but it's fun, And then I did that for many years. The nice thing about OT is that you can work in a lot of variety of areas. So I worked in the psych, I worked in the schools, and then I started teaching at Barry University as an adjunct professor because they were the first program of occupational therapy assistants getting their occupational therapy degree. So that's where the teaching comes in.
But that's awesome.
Yeah.
That's such a path.
Next year, it'll be 40 years in the field, which is crazy.
That is crazy. That's awesome. Being dedicated to like one path of medicine for such a long time. Like that's really awesome.
Yeah. But that's what's so nice about that profession is even though I've been a therapist, the different areas are so varied. Like skilled nursing is obviously different than school setting. Then remember, I used to take you to the PPEC where the little kids, the medically fragile kids are. It's like a daycare.
Yeah.
So it's the
I do remember
same.
that, actually.
Yeah.
Some of it.
Yeah. So it's the same therapy, but just each setting is so different. It's like getting a different job. That's what I love about it.
That's awesome. That's nice to think that there's so much different like diversity in what you get to do. Yeah. And at the beginning, you were saying that the transition was tough, and that was for you specifically moving from Cuba here to the United States. Right?
Yes, very tough in many ways.
Yeah. What was that like? Like, that's crazy coming from like communist Cuba to like the USA. And what year was it? Did you come over?
I came in 69, September of 69. So awesome. I was 5.5, almost 6. I mean, it's easier in some ways when you're that young because you don't know a lot of the nitty gritty. I mean, I know what I heard, as a little kid, adults still talk about you. So I knew it was something dangerous. Back in that time, people could not know that you were leaving because that's horrible in a communist country to be one of the people leaving. People would get stoned, thrown stones at, you could lose your job and just different things. So not even our family knew until literally you're like boarding the plane, pretty much. It's all hush hush. So I internalized a lot of that fear initially because again, as kids, even if you don't understand it, you perceive your parents, how they're freaked out and all the secrecy and you do overhear something. So I knew something was happening and I knew it was something scary. So of course, as a little kid, I'm thinking the scary thing is ahead of me, the coming over here type thing. So it was pretty scary. So yeah, it was not fun. I do recall a lot of trauma around it. And actually, one of the things that did happen to me, which I recall, was very early on after coming here, all of a sudden I stopped walking. And they couldn't figure out what was wrong with me. I couldn't walk. And they took me back then. It was Miami Children's Hospital, which was a tiny building. Now it's a huge complex. And I think they actually even changed their name. But they said it was all psychological, that there was obviously nothing physically wrong with me. But I think it's, again, that internalizing that whole fear. And as an adult looking back, I'm thinking the walking was, fleeing, Cuba and all that. So, well, I don't think I ever told you that happened to me. So,
no, we actually haven't discussed that at all.
Yeah. And I used to have a lot of nightmares about it, early on, like even into my teen years, about that whole transition and how scary all that was. And I think because a lot of it too, it was like my mom was very traumatized because, one of my sisters was fairly young. She was supposed to come with us. And at the last minute, her dad changed his mind. So my mom was very upset over that. So again, as a little kid, you don't understand that. And I would be like, very much like, hey, I'm here. I don't understand why you're so upset because, I'm the baby. And so, but yeah, different things. And like I said, parents don't really talk about things. So you have to figure things out on your own, which is hard to do when you're 6 years old.
Yeah, that's tough, especially like you guys really did kind of lose her for a little bit.
Yeah.
Right? Like how long were you guys disconnected for, you and Aleda?
We did actually that was that was Alina, because Alina is the one that follows me. She was the one that was supposed to come.
No, I know. I was saying you and Aleda from Cuba.
Oh, well, it was 10 years before we saw each other again. So I was 15 when we were allowed to go back and visit. So, and then if you imagine back then, there weren't even phone calls. So it was snail mail. And to Cuba was really snail. It would take 3 months to get a letter one way.
I remember that we would have so many packages, so many letters, and we would always take giant bushels of everything to Cuba.
Yeah, because everybody's trying to communicate with their loved ones, and that's the way to do it if somebody's going. But yeah, because we left, obviously we weren't welcomed initially, and then it took 10 years. So yeah, I was 15 when we were first allowed back. And of course, I left at the age of 5. So needless to say, they didn't recognize me, and I didn't really remember them. So it was awkward, and it was scary because, they had like pictures of Fidel Castro in their houses, and I thought they were all communists, but it's because they have to have it. Yeah. So, but it wasn't a fun experience.
Yeah, it's really interesting. Yeah, we've never talked about that before. So, and then what was the older years like? I remember you did. I remember you told me that you used to go scuba diving and you were a lifeguard. And when you told me, I was like, "What?"
Snorkeling. I never scuba dived.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Well, my first job as an OT, because I chose OT over everything else, is because I love psychology and all that. And with OT, you can do, which is one of the rotations we used to do, the psych. So I knew I was going to be a psych OT. So I worked. My first job was in a very seedy psych hospital, to get your experience. So it was really scary, but I learned a lot. Locked units and things like that with we had criminally insane people. And that was scary because as a therapist, I had to give my input. Like I remember one time there was a man that was there for molesting his own children. And he had to go through the whole psych thing because he claimed, something, I can't even recall what. So you have to give input, and it's very hard to separate your personal feelings, like how I felt about this man personally versus as a therapist. So, but I eventually went to a private psych hospital in Miami, which I loved that job. To me, it wasn't work. Like they used to say, you need to take vacation but I was young, so it wasn't like I had little kids or anything. And, I was 22, 23. And so I worked at the psych hospital in a pediatric setting. So they had a peds unit, an adolescent unit, adults, they had a special unit for women that had multiple personalities. So it was just, to me, it's so much fun and so exciting that, like I said, it wasn't work.
So that was the dream job at the time?
Yeah, that was my dream job. I loved it. And I remember I used to work 11 to 7, so I'm not a morning person, so it was perfect because I can sleep in if I wanted to.
That's awesome.
But a lot of times I just did part-time work in the mornings before work. And then I got out early enough that I could still have a life, so I forgot what the original question was that you asked me.
No worries,
my beginning job. Yeah. So that was it. That was my dream job.
That's awesome. Yeah. And I actually didn't know that you were so.
Oh, it was the life aspect. Sorry. Yeah. I remember now. So that psych hospital, it was a private psych hospital. It looked like a fancy hotel. And we used to have famous people that would check in. And half the time we didn't know who they were sometimes because they would be put somewhere very privately. But we had like a famous ABC anchor, a famous musician from the 70s. So probably not that famous now, but yeah. But they had a huge pool and they had a huge gymnasium, like bigger than a school gymnasium. And because
this is Miami.
Yeah, Miami. This was, let's see, I graduated 86, so 90, 89, 90, 88.
Man, Miami in the 90s.
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead.
So because there was a pool, in order to bring the patients to the pool, we had to be lifeguard certified. Oh. So mind you, I didn't know how to swim. So that's how crazy it is. I didn't know how to swim because back in the day when I took swim lessons, somebody pushed me off the diving board without me obviously being ready, and I freaked out, so I never finished. So I had to start from scratch. I had to learn how to swim to then do this intensive lifeguard training. So yeah,
That's awesome.
Yeah, that was pretty scary.
That's so awesome.
Yeah.
That's crazy. So to do
Yeah.
that as an adult, like that's tough. Like I
Yeah.
see people right now at the wreck that we're at, and they're adults trying to learn how to swim, and I'm
Yeah.
like, that's awesome. Like it's so tough
Yeah.
to go from that to lifeguarding. How long
Yeah.
did it take you?
It was a while. I want to say about the whole lifeguard training was about 2 months. The
Oh,
learning to swim, I don't really remember, but yeah, it was quite a few weeks. But yeah, the lifeguard training, the warm up was like, I don't know, 50 laps, in the pool before you even started the training. And you have to go into the ocean and make sure you can rescue somebody in the ocean, which wasn't easy. So
that's awesome. Yeah,
Yeah.
so it's like legit lifeguard training.
yeah. Oh yeah,
That's
it was
cool.
legit. Yeah. So yeah, then I did snorkeling after that, but no, never scuba training. I didn't like the idea of this. Even snorkeling enough was a little scary, being underwater
Yeah.
that long. Well, I have respect for the ocean.
Yeah, living by the beach, right?
Yeah.
Like, that's awesome though. And right now, all your hobbies, well, not all, but like a lot of your hobbies are beach related, right? You go kayaking and
Yeah, we do paddleboarding, kayaking. Well, I still scrapbook, which isn't beach related, but yeah, I love the water, and my dream has always been to live by the ocean. I just have I think because I wasn't comfortable because of my experience as a kid, I'm still very, not scared, but like I said, I respect it because I now, people, you hear it all the time. He was a strong swimmer and he was a lifeguard, but he drowned. It's like, nature is nature and stuff can happen. So I respect.
I think I think respect is a great
Yeah.
connection to have with the sea for sure.
Like last year when Zoe was here, I told Dwayne, I'm like, I will not take her to the beach itself without you there because I think we need two people, in case something happens or whatever. Like, we would do the pool, but the beach itself, I don't feel comfortable doing it by myself.
Yeah, that's solid. It's really good
Yeah.
to like know your limitations in the real world. Like
Yeah.
the beach can be a scary place.
Yeah.
I feel like people don't realize that the beach is really romanticized. Like it's low key. I don't want to say a
Yeah.
death trap because that's crazy, but
Yeah.
what is the craziest wildlife that you've seen in the ocean?
In the ocean,
Well, like whatever,
Yeah.
like whatever.
well,
yeah.
living here, we've seen a lot of dolphins. In the ocean and even riverside, like we've been kayaking, and like literally if you go at the right time, which is 5-ish or so, you'll see them like right there super close to you. But we did see a whale when we did our Alaska cruise, so that was pretty awesome to see a whale. Not ocean related, but we've seen manatees going paddleboarding, so it's really cool.
That's awesome. Yeah. So we go out and we do like wilderness walks, and last time we went camping, it was like sub 30 degrees. Like we just went for it. And so we're always seeing like random things, but it's never those, right? Like the animals that we go to based off our geography. I always found that really interesting.
Yeah. Well, there's a place in Ocala that we went the paddleboarding and with the manatees, and there were monkeys, these wild monkeys. And it's because I guess there's an island somewhere nearby that have these wild monkeys that were brought in, I think for science experiments or something. I'm not really sure the background. But yeah, they were just like all over the place. And I'm like, this is weird to see monkeys in Florida in this area where it's just like, the Manatee River or something, and you have wild monkeys. It's like, it's a little weird. But yeah. When I was young, we did the Everglades tour. So of course you see, alligators and things like that. So
Yeah, the Everglades is crazy. right? Have you heard the thing about like right now the snakes took over 90%
Oh,
of it
yeah.
or something?
Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
like, the
They
Everglades
have
is
that
crazy.
and wild hogs too that are overpopulated. So yeah, they have.
That's huge
Yeah.
in Florida right now, right?
Yeah, they have. I actually had a patient that had broken his hip as he was hunting wild hogs. It
That's
attacked
awesome.
him, and he fell and fractured his hip. And
All right.
but yeah,
Not awesome what happened to him, but
yeah.
the fact that he was out there hunting
Yeah.
is cool.
they they have hunting seasons for those snakes and for these wild. I don't know if they're called boars or hogs, but yeah,
Yeah. People kill them, hunt them, they eat them. Like,
yeah.
it's awesome. Yeah. I mean, it controls the population. Like, that's a
Yeah.
real thing that the U.S. does to manage the population
Yeah.
of these animals. It's pretty cool, right? Like, for me, I don't know a ton about the wildlife. Becca is so great at throwing out just random information.
Yeah.
Like, she says that it's a waste of information. I'm like, yeah, until you need it.
Right,
She
right.
is so like,
For
we'll go somewhere
$100,000, answer this question. That's I know
for sure.
the answer.
100%. Yeah, that information is always valuable. And whenever we're outside, like she's always like, "Oh, this is that tree and that's that." And I'm like,
Yeah.
I don't know any of this stuff.
Yeah, I don't know it. You can tell me, and tomorrow I won't know it. We went, I think it was our first time camping with Cub Scouts, and we were supposed to do a nature tour, and the person couldn't do it. So, being the leader, I'm like, and there's a tree, and there's another tree, and this one's green with a little red. I had no clue, but your grandmother was very good with that. She'd be like, that's an avocado tree. That's a mango tree. That's a this tree. That's a that tree. I'm like, how can you tell? Unless there's a mango on it, I don't know.
That's so awesome. Can you please tell me about Yaya? Yaya is my grandma. I call her Yaya.
Yeah.
But go ahead and introduce my Yaya.
Yaya was amazing. Both of my parents were amazing. I mean, obviously, I'm here. We are here because of them. It's tough making that choice to leave one country to go to another country, and then you don't know the language, you don't know the culture. And basically, they did it because they wanted me to have a better life, So they were both pretty content with being there and the situation until I was born. And then all of a sudden, it's like, wait a minute, no. You can't find shoes for your kid, you can't find food, and it kind of pisses me off, not to get political, but a lot of people that don't realize what a lot of immigrants go through and why they're here. If all of a sudden you couldn't provide for your daughters, you would do anything, to provide the basic necessities to them. So people don't realize that, because when you're living here, and you used to say that when you were younger, and we would go to Cuba and you would come back and you would tell your friends, like, you have no clue how easy you have it. You don't have toothpaste, you run to the store and get toothpaste. You need an aspirin, it's not like that in Cuba. You don't have toothpaste, well, good luck, So yeah, I credit them. They were already older. My mom was like 46 when they came here, so you have to learn to drive. That was her biggest fear.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
So
46 learning to drive.
yeah,
That is
not just learning to drive. If you think of, and you've been to Cuba, how there aren't cars.
There's
Like
no
people
cars,
don't. Yeah. If you're well off, if you have a car, and usually it's people that have kept them. Right. So there aren't cars. So it's not like you've even been in a car. So now you're surrounded by cars. You have to learn to drive, and so yeah, the language, culture, all that. Yeah, I remember when I was 15 and took my learner's permit test, she literally handed the keys and she never drove again. It was like, for many years, we just took the bus because she just refused. So unless my dad drove us somewhere, she and I would take the bus places. But yeah, so I credit them for a lot, their work ethics. Obviously they came here and they busted butt within 2 years. They owned their house already, their first home.
That's so crazy.
Yeah. And you have people
That's
that
so crazy.
are born here and never own a home.
Yeah.
So yeah, but yeah, they busted butt. You know, they worked 2-3 jobs and obviously raised me, and so yeah, they were great role models.
That's awesome. That's so great. And you were a great role model for me. Like that is,
Oh, thank you.
yeah. Like it's also, I've said it before, but truly like part of who the person is as they grow up is their parents, right? Because there's that nature versus nurture. And some people say that genetics is 90% of the outcome. I disagree. I think that if you take someone, the geography, the location, the environment that they grow up in is a lot more. Like maybe their top potential, like how good they ever get, that might be genetics.
Right.
Most people don't reach that anyways. Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
But
Well,
most of it is you know?
Yeah. Thank you. Well, and it could go both ways. Like when I raised you, I used to say I took the best of both worlds, because there were definitely a lot of things in the Cuban culture. And that's what Yaya would disagree with. Like, I was very pampered growing up. I didn't have to do anything. Like, literally, my mom would come in early in the morning and put my socks and shoes on so I would have extra sleep time. Like, how long does it take to put socks and shoes on? And I used to tease her all the time, because I'd be
hilarious.
like, yeah, I'm like, if I wanted to, I could be like such a brat and she'd be like, oh no, we would be stern with you. I'm like, no, you would never be stern. You just lucked out that I am a naturally old person and naturally nerdy. So I never got into trouble because I love school. I'm like the first kid that I wanted to be in school. Back in the day, they would offer summer if you wanted to go. And I want to go. That's how I met Tiffany.
That's crazy.
Crazy. I loved it. First of all, because as an only child with older parents, I was bored. Like, school was my social outlet. And my cousins. But, during the week, I didn't have. So I was bored. I loved going to school. Plus, I love to learn. I'm a natural nerd. If you're a teenager, like 15 and 16, and your mom is telling you should go out and have fun, that's a nerdy kid. I love to be home with a book. Like, I'm good. I got my book. I'm good, So, yeah.
That's awesome. And now you are a healthy adult, so clearly it worked out, right?
Yeah. So yeah, that was my point, is I took the best. Like, I'm not going to spoil my child. Like, I remember I did laundry for the first time when I first moved out. I had never done laundry. I think as a teenager, finally I started helping out, because I started to realize, oh, my parents work a lot. Let me clean the bathroom or whatever. But I was never required to have chores, anything.
Wow, that's such a lifestyle.
Yeah.
We definitely don't do that with our kids.
Yeah, no. But that's a very typical Cuban household. The kids, the parents do everything for their kids.
Yeah.
And I was like, I'm not raising my child like that. No. He's going to know life skills. The first time I did laundry, or the first time I used a dishwasher, mind you, in all defense, I had never had a dishwasher, so I didn't know what I was doing. I put regular soap in and flooded the place. But my point was, I had never been forced to do anything.
Yeah, now, that is such a sitcom, by the way. Like, that is such a sitcom.
Yeah. Or lighting a fireplace and not knowing that you have to open the vent, and I smoke filled everything. Yeah.
I love it. I love it. Yeah.
Cuba, you don't have fireplaces, but yeah. But with that being said, I was also very mature, because I had to grow up at a very young age. I did a lot for my parents because of that language barrier. So I translated for them. I filled out documents for them. So I had to also grow up. So even though I was spoiled in some areas as far as household stuff, I also did a lot. And especially the older I got, I took care of them more and more, because you just have to. But
yeah.
Which is why I never went. My dream was to go away to college, and when it finally happened that I had that option, I didn't go, because I was like, my parents can't read their own mail. Like, I can't leave them. So I stayed in Florida to study, in Miami, actually.
I got you. What ended up finally giving you that final push to go?
No, I didn't go. That's what I'm saying. I never, to go to college or just,
Yeah,
I
college.
didn't go away to college.
Okay, I got you.
Yeah,
What college did you want to go to? Like, if you wanted to pick one.
Just anywhere, just to have, you would see on TV that experience of being away from home and just, college life. And I'm like, oh, I want to do that. So back in the day, it was really hard to get into OT school, and Florida only had 2 OT programs. So I applied to North Dakota, if you can imagine. They had one of the better programs. I applied to the 2 schools in Florida. One was in Gainesville, so I would have been away from home. And I even toured the school before my senior year, and it was such a eye opener because kids are walking around in shorts, and I'm like, oh, God, how crazy to go to school in shorts, and
that's so crazy.
Yeah, because I lived a very sheltered life in Miami.
Yeah. And
I was telling.
Tell me what year would this be?
I graduated high school in 82. So this would be 1981. Yeah.
82 and then 81. Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I was telling somebody the other day, like, even though I grew up here in the United States, I lived a very sheltered life until like the beginning of high school. I had my first American friend. So my little world was still, all my Cuban friends and family and, speaking Spanish. And I had my first American friend and went to her house, and I was like, what do you mean you don't eat black beans and rice and fried plantains? Like, what do you eat? I just assumed that was the norm. Everybody ate that. I mean, think about it. I'm in high school, and this is my thought process.
Yeah.
Like, I had no idea that I thought I hated spaghetti because I had only had school spaghetti, which was like a can of Chef Boyardee. And they were making spaghetti at their house, and I'm like, oh my God, what am I going to do? Because I don't like spaghetti. Oh my God. And I tried it, and it was like real spaghetti. I'm like, wow, this is good. So funny story. I taught Yaya about spaghetti. So we made it. And what did she serve it with? Rice and plantains. And I'm like, you can't have spaghetti and rice. It's too much carb. And she's like, there's no such thing. You have rice with everything. It's like,
that's hilarious. That's 100% the mindset.
Yeah.
That's so crazy.
Yeah. And I'm still to this day learning like idioms or just different things that culturally I was like never exposed to. And I'm like, okay, I don't know what that is. But I grew up here, so.
That's awesome. That's such a concept. I am really curious. When you were younger, were you into, what were you into? Like, can you think of the entertainment, the media? Like, what kind of stuff were you interested in throughout the years? Like, most popular on TV, the radio? I know the Beatles, Elvis. Wait. Let's shoot off good first. All right, so I've got the Beatles.
My
Elvis, crazy. I still tell people that there was a larger portrait of Elvis's face
than you.
The house than anyone in the house. Like, that was it. It was a giant portrait of Elvis, and then I guess I'll scrapbook Manuel here.
Well, and I learned Elvis from my guitar lessons because, again, I was never exposed to it per se. And so doing my guitar lessons, I did some of his music, and then I'm like, oh, I like that. And yeah. But yeah,
what is discovering Elvis like? Like, what does that feel like?
Well, when I watched the first movies and stuff, same thing. Most women back then, when I was a girl, but it was like, oh my God, he's so cute. That's what gets you in at first. But yeah. Initially growing up, it was the telenovelas on TV because I didn't watch anything. My high school, again, when I was introduced to my American friends, I was introduced to American soap operas, which are very different. Our soap operas are like long TV series. They have a beginning and an end. It may last a year, but it ends. General Hospital, which is one of the ones I loved, is still going on. So it's like American soap operas don't end. It's very
Can you think of
bizarre.
any other soap operas or telenovelas that like you really remember?
Well, I remember all the Spanish telenovelas. They all had the same plot. You know, the girl's really poor and the guy's really rich, and she works for him either as a maid or whatever. And somebody always fell down the stairs while they were pregnant and lost the baby. You know, they all had the same plots. I don't know why, but yeah. But yeah, in high school, that's when I started to watch, like back in the day, Starsky and Hutch and Chips were the two big things for me. And I got my mom hooked. She would watch it with me and I would translate. And she loved anything Sylvester Stallone. She loved that man. So,
yeah, awesome.
Yes, Rocky, anything like that. She also liked Robin Williams.
Oh yeah,
God, he was hysterical.
Great man.
Yeah,
Robin Williams is awesome.
Yeah. So, you know, comedy stuff, obviously, because she could just gather from what was happening. I mean, I would translate, but she could see how he's being crazy, like Mrs. Doubtfire.
That's crazy.
Like that.
Translate
Yeah.
movies.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah. Well, back in the day, they didn't have closed caption that you can read stuff, you know, like now she could have read it. And yeah.
Did you just like give her updates, or were you like live?
Yeah. Yeah, pretty much as it happened, I would tell her what was happening. So, I mean, some things like Starsky and Hutch was a 70s TV show that was, they were cops. So, you know, obviously you could see the shootout and the chase. I don't have to translate that, but yeah. So
that's awesome. What, so right now, what are you doing like career-wise?
Well, I call myself almost semi-retired because now, since I'm with Easter Seals, I followed the Volusia County school schedule. So I have spring break off, you know, the summers off, and I still try to do some PRN, but not as much. So it's a big change for me. It's the first time I've had one job, and that doesn't require that many hours. So I'm really enjoying it.
That's so awesome.
Slowing down.
Yeah. No, we talked about it. Like, I think that I normalized having multiple jobs at once because of you. Like, you've always been like trucking multiple things at once.
Yeah.
And to me, I was just like, yeah, like that's life. Like, you're just always working. Like,
yeah.
That's normal.
Yeah. Well, it's funny because, you know, that one sibling that we were talking about, she was always very critical of me in the sense of things that we had, obviously, as far as material things, or like our house in Altamont. She was like, oh, must be nice. And I was like, I work hard. You know, she made it sound like somebody just knocked on my door and said, here's a nice house for you if you would like it.
For sure.
But she worked the minimum. I'm like, well, you can't complain. Like, you get what you put in. So if you put in,
like 40 hours is like tough, and like people hit 40, and sometimes they think that's enough, and for some people it truly is, you know. But I think it comes down to ambition. Like, how high do you want to go? I think you just had it, and some of your other siblings didn't.
Yeah.
I think that they got what they wanted. You know, like I think they all worked hard as well in their own way. Because like in Cuba, like it's a different type of work, but like they're working, right?
Right.
Like,
right.
Even Miami, like Miami's not the best place to be. So like I do respect, like Alina did her grind, like everyone, like I do have love for everyone in our family. And I do think though, like you were the most ambitious. Like that is hands down. Like you had that dog in you.
Yeah.
And it just didn't stop.
And it's funny because growing up here versus growing up in Cuba, you would think it would have been the opposite, because I did have so much available to me. Or like you said, in Cuba, there's no car, so you have to walk however many miles to catch the bus, or, you know, the little donkey cart thing when the buses weren't working. And here it's, you know, way easier, obviously, because you can have a fairly good lifestyle working the minimum 40 hours, you know. But yeah, so Yeah, like when I did adjunct professor, I literally had 3 jobs at that time. So I would work my job. I did that on the weekends. And then that whole 11 to 7, yeah, it was nice at the beginning. But after a while, I'm like, okay, I think I can work a few hours before work. And so I started working before that. So,
I love the grind, man.
yeah.
I love it.
But think about it. How else in Miami by myself was I going to afford a house? You know, people afford it when you have 2 incomes or whatever, but with one income, it's tough. So, because I made a nice salary. I have a profession, but I wasn't like banking, 100,000 back in the day or whatever. So you have to, if you want a house, well, you have to work for it.
Yeah. That's awesome. I love it.
Yeah.
I love it so much. I think that's the same mentality is true today. And like nothing changed from that time frame to this time frame. If you want something, you can get it. You just have to go after it. I think it's the ambition and then actually taking the true desire to get after it.
Yeah, and not taking the easy way out, like, going into the criminal aspect of things, like, oh yeah, I want that. I think I'll sell some drugs or something. It's like
crime is interesting. Yeah, I think that when it comes to crime, it's faster. Like you make money quicker, right? Because like sometimes when you got a job, like it's usually 2 years before you get any promotion or a solid raise, like blah, blah, blah. But when it comes to crime, how much do you have is immediate worth. But there's so much risk that almost everyone goes to jail. Like, there's no point. If you're going to strive, like, just put in more hours. So. Yeah.
It's funny because that psych rotation that I had to do, mind you, I'm 19 years old. So I have to go, and part of the psych OT is you run groups. So you run groups on coping skills or meditation or problem solving or whatever. So I had to run an adolescent group. And I've always been very shy. I was very mousy, like a nerd, so I was nerdy. And I run this adolescent group with these kids that 90% of them were in there to prevent them from going to jail because they had been caught dealing drugs or in gangs. And they were like reaming me like I make more than what I was an intern, so I wasn't making anything, but they didn't know that. They're like, we make more in a week than you do in an entire year. And I'm like, well, that's true. I said, but I am not looking over my shoulder all the time. When I go home, I can sleep. I'm not worried about the police knocking or another gang knocking or, I'd rather make, back then it was 21,000 a year. I'd rather make 20,000 a year and be, in a stable environment that I'm not like constantly in fear or, either committing a crime or having a crime committed upon me. So, but yeah, the psychiatrist pulled me over because the first time I was like, really? And he's like, he was funny because he says, think of it as you're acting, because obviously these kids were killing me, And he goes, think of it as a role. You're acting, you come in, you're strong, you run your group. And that's how a lot of people are like, oh, you're not shy. And I'm like, yes, because at work, I have a different persona. Like, I remember that where I'm like, yes, I'm the leader of this group now. I have to pretend to be, and eventually all that pretending, I became a stronger, my personality.
God, I love it. I love it. Yes, 100%.
The fake it till you make it. But yeah. But if you put me in a social environment, even now, I'm still very shy. It's just because that's my norm. That's my normal. That's my personality. I don't have to fake it if I'm somewhere. But yeah.
That's awesome. I love it. I definitely get the fact that being shy to me now is more of how much of your personal self are you actually revealing. Like people wear masks. Like if I'm in the military, I'm gonna act differently than if I'm at UPS, right? Like versus now at the new position here at Community Link, like all these different companies, like no, obviously I have to be a different person, bring a different persona, and throughout, you're right, you're absolutely right. Like we grow throughout the time frame, and you don't even realize it until I feel like until the years are behind you, and then you're like, oh no, I did that. I'm not just talking about it or thinking about it. I did those things. I now know that I am those things. You know?
Right. Yeah. After a while, it just becomes, like you said, part of you. And yeah. And I've always, like, I think back in high school, you know, my nerdy group, and we had our little nerdy group, you know, you have the jocks and the this. And I always had leader potential because I was the leader of the nerdy group. So, so going into like that with OT, and I ran my groups and I led them, and I started feeling that way. Like, hey, I'm the leader here. I know my stuff, and you know, I'm going to teach you and things like that.
When you start getting that mentality, that's so awesome.
Yeah,
that's so early to start gaining that leadership mentality.
Yeah. But yeah,
love it. And then, so after that, when you continued on, now, actually, yeah, let's talk kind of now. What are your biggest, like, time that you see yourself spending on the day to day?
Well, typically work. Obviously, I'm still working, so you know that's still a big chunk of my time. But now I can do stuff like, you know, we joke about back in the day. I was always, you know, with you and your activities, it was always go, go, go. Yeah. And like now I have time where I'm learning to cook, and I cook things, and I never had that time before to just like chill. You know, I play Word. my addiction is words with friends. And again, I never had that downtime before. It was like, so that's why I always say I feel like I'm semi-retired, because I'm used to, even before we moved here, like, you know, when I was still at the condo, I would do my regular job and then I would go do PRN somewhere. And, you know, luckily meeting Dwayne, my husband now, and that two income, I finally learned that, like, oh, I can chill because I don't have to be the sole provider for this household, and I can, like I said, chill. And so we do stuff like on the weekends, or where the weekends it would be like running errands and doing all the house stuff. Well, now sometimes I have time during the week to do some of the house stuff, so not everything is the weekend, you know. So yeah, it's just. And then, of course, looking forward to retirement.
That makes sense. For sure.
Yeah.
How would you say the beach where you're at versus Miami is? Like, what? I mean, actually, you know, the whole Florida coastline, what would you say is your favorite beach?
Well, I like the Gulf Coast beaches, to be honest. They just seem, I guess, because it's more, even though over here it's mellow, growing up in Miami, even going to the beach was like, you know, like the loud music, the, you know, the younger crowd. Like I said, I've always been, my mom used to say it, I was born old. Like I was never into clubbing or never into just what normal teenagers do and stuff. So even going to the beach wasn't like a calming experience. You know, I still enjoyed it because I love going to the beach. I love being in the water. But here, especially where we're at now, that is so mellow. It's like, woo. So that's what I used to like about the West Coast. It's typically older people, at least the areas I would go to. So the vibe was also just a mellower vibe, which is my norm. Like, yes, I grew up in Miami, but I am not a city girl. Like, I don't miss it. Again, not because I'm older, because when I was young, I didn't like it. You know, I don't like crowds. I don't like all the chaos and the traffic. And, you know, and a lot of people like that. They're like, you know, New York City because it's so busy. I'm like, oh, no, not me.
Exactly. Yeah. Miami has like a certain speed to it. You know, like I feel like to be like a true Miami person, like you gotta be at a certain level
everything's
all
fast.
the time.
Yeah.
I like it.
Dwayne laughs. He goes, I don't know how you learned to drive here. And I'm like, I know, but because everything's like that, so fast. Like you got to keep up, you know? Yeah. So, but yeah, that's not my
valuable. I like that.
Yeah. So here it matches me because it is mellower. So I enjoy it.
That's awesome. If there was somewhere in the world that you haven't been to yet, like where would you go? Like anywhere Or if you've been there before, where would you go? Like where?
Oh, well, I love to travel, and
I know.
yeah, there's a lot of places that I would love to go again and for the first time. I loved Greece and Turkey. We went there, but it was like a cruise, so it's like very minimal stops. So I would like to go and kind of stay there, pretty much anywhere in Europe. Just we want to travel in the U.S. as well. Like that's one of our goals is for retirement, get a camper and travel the U.S. There's tons of places. He really wants to go to Ireland, which I'm okay with, but yeah.
Guys, I've only been there one time, and I got an Irish hot coffee, so I've got no regrets.
Switzerland, I would love to go there. So yeah,
Nice.
pretty much
That's
anywhere.
awesome.
I like to travel, so anywhere.
Traveling is great. I don't know. How much would you say America travels right now? Do you think that we still, like the normal average day-to-day person is
No.
traveling as much as they used to, or do you think it's lessened?
No, I think it's lessened between cost. I even before like being here, obviously closer to the beach now, even though I was close to the beach in Miami, it's different because it's such a big city. But like you hear people all the time like that they've never left their little town and I'm like, I find that like amazing. Like
It's crazy.
again, things that we don't take for granted from where we came from, but you hear people that have been born here, generations of Americans, and they've never purchased a home, they've never traveled within the state, much less out of the state. And you're like, how is that possible? Like, but like you said, I think it's that lack of motivation on some people's part.
Yeah, and I don't even think it's negative, like necessarily negative. I think the cool thing about it is that people are so content with where they're at. Like that's not necessarily a bad thing, like if you can live in one area and you are content and then you pass and you didn't like traverse the world, I don't think that's necessarily a bad way to go. I think it all
Right.
depends on like the perception. I
Right.
do think that we have that bug. Like man,
Yeah.
like we like
Yeah.
traveling. 'Cause I'm with you. I really appreciate you helping me go through like the Europe trip. I like to make the joke. I say I've traveled Europe with my band,
Yeah.
and it was it was the concert band that we had.
Yeah.
So like I really appreciate those. I've said it before too, and I really appreciate that you put me in so many activities. So
Yeah.
what was your thought process when you put me in every sport under the sun? When you put me in martial arts, scouts,
Other
like,
than
what was the
golf.
mindset?
You never did golf. Well, I wanted you to just experience things, and karate was your passion. So I was always like, you do karate and then you do another sport that's seasonal. But I just wanted you to experience different things. Each sport offers something different. Karate, you have a group of friends, but when you're doing it, it's very solo. So with other sports, it's more of a team thing. But I was always very opinionated as far as limiting TV. I feel like all technology is ruining our kids, like kids can't go to a restaurant now. They don't know what to do unless they have a phone or a tablet or, I don't want to get into a soapbox, but, I wanted to limit TV. It's just great to be out there, to be doing things. And I'm a firm believer that idle minds, especially boys, are going to get in trouble, especially, those teenage years. If you have nothing to do, you're going to find something to do. And typically it's not going to be a positive activity. So
You're so right. You're so right.
So it was that like cutting down the TV. You were only allowed to watch it on the weekends. And, providing you just different experiences. We used to do, I don't know if you remember when we did like the symphony, the kids symphony. And we went once a month and you were exposed to different instruments and orchestra music. And yeah. mean, you should remember. I think you were like 11 or so, 10 or 11.
I have terrible memory.
Yeah.
I'm really trying now. The thing is that I've always looked forward. I have a hard time like
Yeah,
retaining
I do too.
memories.
I have a hard time recalling things, but
I think like we're forward lookers. Like
yeah.
like we're always right now. I just feel like I got to the present. Like it's weird. Like,
But yeah, I wanted you to be exposed to all of that. You know, we went to the ballet. It wasn't just sports. So, you know, I wanted you to be a man of the world.
yeah. No, I
Yeah.
really do appreciate that. Like that, I do think molded me.
Yeah. The main thing is keeping you busy. So, you know, that was my main goal, but which
Yeah. Those activities, they pushed me along because for me, I was very we talked about like I felt like I was cruising through life for most of it. Like I did well in elementary school, and then middle school I was just like too cool for school. I'm too smart. I don't need to learn anything else.
Yeah.
And then just did terribly. Was a terrible child
yeah.
throughout middle school, and then I kind of mellowed out a little bit in high school, but still not great intellectually. And, like as far as like paying attention and doing well, almost failing high school is crazy.
Well, I used to tell you, I want you to be at your potential, like you said. You know, when you be like, well, C is average, and you know it's passing, and I'm like, but that's not where your potential is at. I want you to always strive, and of course at that time, which is typical behavior for that age group, but it's scary. Like it made me nervous because you were like, I'm not going to college. I'm like, oh my God, no, don't say that. It's like, not that you need a degree, but I remember my dad pushed me like, that's your job, you know, like in the US, you need a degree. Like he was very much.
So it came from him. That's so.
Oh, yes. I wasn't even allowed to have a part-time job in high school. I begged him because all of my friends had part-time jobs. And he used to say, your job is to study. That's your job. He had dual purpose. The main thing was because it gives you opportunities that you wouldn't have if you didn't have a degree. But also because we had an abusive person in our family, and we used to always be rescuing this one lady because her husband was abusing her. And he was like, I don't ever want you to be in that predicament. You know, as a woman, I want you to be able to be on your own and not have to rely on a man.
Yeah.
For income or whatever. So he always.
That's so awesome. Yes, I love it.
Yeah. So, I mean, it didn't hurt that I already enjoyed school and was a nerd, but he's the one that was like, for sure. So that's how I felt with you, because there's obviously millions of people that do well without having a degree. But I used to, because for a long time you were like, you wanted to open up your dojo, you know, you were that into karate. And I'm like, that's fine. Get a business degree.
Did I say that? I don't remember that.
Oh yeah. You wanted to be like Mr. Somerville and have your own. And I'm like, that's fine. But you have a business degree to help you with that business versus just, you know, making it up as you go along. Again, not to say that you can't be successful, but I wanted you to have that as an option in case you needed it. So
yeah, and there you go. That business degree helped me get the position on that now. So. It just took a lot longer without the path that you were expecting, huh?
Yeah.
I
always thought you were going to be a lawyer, though. The way you come up with, you know, all your explanations of things, and you know, this should be this and that should be that. I'm like, oh my God, a lawyer. And for a while you wanted to be a lawyer, but then you stopped. But
yeah. And then I decided the medical field.
Yeah.
And then it went weird.
Yeah.
What was it like when I told you that I wanted to go to the Navy?
It was scary. On the one hand, very proud because, you know, I think serving your country in any capacity is amazing. But as a mother and thinking of your child being sent somewhere to fight somebody else's war, you know, I was not happy. So it was conflicting. It was conflicting.
Yeah, I get that.
You know, but very proud overall. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, that's cool. I enjoyed my Navy career, but I was always curious about like what your opinions were
Yeah.
at the time.
Yeah. Well, especially because you thought it would be the greatest thing to go out and be in a war zone, like you wanted that. And I'm like, oh my,
Yes. I
I'd be like,
did.
it's not a video game. It's different. Oh, I know it's not a video game. And I'm like,
No, I didn't even play that. But like, I did play a lot of Call of Duty, but like, I don't know. I've always had this itch to fight, I guess,
yeah,
which is crazy. I didn't realize that I went from wanting to fight in martial arts to then going to the Navy.
yeah. But it's
That's
so
interesting.
traumatic for people. Like, even if you don't get physically hurt in any way,
Yeah,
you know how many people come back with post-traumatic stress. It can't be easy. If you're a nice person, it can't be easy to kill somebody. I'm
for
sorry.
sure.
Like,
And that's
no.
why I say I'm not a nice person.
Shut up.
I don't-
And if you
Yeah, I
think
know.
about, like, you have this person who's your quote unquote enemy, it's just some other 19-year-old kid that was sent to fight. He probably may not even agree with what he's fighting for or whatever. So you have these two people shooting each other, and it's for what? But again, I don't want to get political, but
No, I got you sometimes for sure, especially in the past. Like, I mean,
yeah,
as far as America, I mean, I guess all war really is like exactly that. But
yeah.
yeah. So, what is your opinion on the world stage right now? Like, as
Oh,
far as we don't got to go there if you don't want to go there. But I'm just curious, like, what's like, as a person in their point in life, like, how are you feeling about the rest of your life? Are you optimistic? Are you pessimistic? Like, we don't have to go crazy.
yeah. I'll tell you this. The other day, after the election, I told Megan, a friend of mine, it's the first time as a Cuban coming from Cuba to here where I am fearful because I feel like I'm going to be in the same boat. Like, I left a communist country to come here and be free to be me. And I feel like we're moving away from that. So to me, it was scary. Like, I told her, I said, I feel like I have PTSD. Like, I couldn't literally sleep, and I had to finally like let it go and, not obsess over it. But I always try to remain optimistic. It's always been my mindset. Even when horrible things have happened, and I mean horrible, and thank God I've never had anything horrible. But I remember back in Miami before you were born, my first house, I got robbed and things were taken. And the cop is like, "You're so calm." And I'm like, my dogs weren't injured. Like, to me, that was my priority. My dogs are okay. Stuff is stuff. My TV, eventually I'll replace so I've always been of that mindset. Like, things can always be worse, or, not to say that stuff doesn't happen, but there's so much out there that can go wrong. So I'm always, 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 always trying to be optimistic, but it's hard, especially as I get older, like thinking retirement age, because, I am a person who's going to rely on Medicare and things like that and Social Security. And if it's not there, like, you start freaking out. Like, am I going to survive? Am I going to be homeless? So it's not where you want to be at this stage in life, but
I got you. Well, just
so
remember,
trying to be
you can
optimistic.
always live with me.
Thank you. And can I bring Ginger?
Yeah. I'm not going to make you leave your dog, of course.
So,
But,
yeah.
I've been playing chess more with Zoe, and it's reminding me a lot of when I used to play chess with Rodolfo back in Cuba. And I'm reminded of like Come On Way, and I really miss those times. Like, for me, I really enjoyed the time that I spent there. I know that I could only enjoy that time because of what you had set up. Like,
Yeah.
our family that was living there had a very good rapport with the community there.
Yeah.
And then you have always given so much back. Like, you've always been such a giver to everyone back there, and it's crazy. Like,
Yeah.
I can't even imagine. You could probably started your own charity fund for how much you
Yeah.
gave and brought back and did stuff like that. Like, that's just crazy.
Well, it's a different lifestyle. And as a kid, think about kids here that you can't do anything unsupervised. You know, you don't let your kid out of your sight. And over there, as a child, you have that freedom, you know, because everybody knows everybody. You know, there's crime, but there's crime, to me, crime of survival. People are going to steal from you because they want those pair of pants or they want that mango from your tree, you know.
Yeah.
It isn't like a random drug or murder or gangs, or so kids can be kids, which is one of the good things about, you know, that life over there. So yeah, I know. And that's why I always made such an effort for you to go, because I know how much you loved it. And it was good for you to, like I said, just be a kid. You know, I could be inside and, you know, of course I found out later on how much trouble you guys got into, and
It was terrible.
yeah, and dangerous situations, but
So much
not,
sketchy shit.
yeah, but not that fear of that some pedophile was going to grab you and, you know, sell you for sex trafficking, you know, that type of, you know, I could just chill and let you be a kid, like I said. So yeah, that's the one positive thing about areas like that, and everybody watches out for everybody. And there is a huge sense of community, basically because of necessity. Like everybody's looking out like, hey, I found rice today over here and I'll give you rice for a little bit of oil, and I'll give you, we're here. We're so like, you barely know your neighbors, and, you know, we're also isolated.
Yeah. When in a time frame that we've never been closer with, like, technology.
Right.
So it's so interesting. It's such an interesting thing. I've been looking a lot into anthropology, and I'm a little interested in history right now, but I'm mainly focused on American history. But I am interested in also the world timeline, like that history. So like the ancient civilizations that pop up and like how that comes forward. I'm really curious, how far back in our ancestry, like, do you know?
I don't know a lot. One of our second cousins would do a lot of it, and we would ask her. I know, which when you did your DNA thing, I thought it was surprising, because we were always told we were from descendants of Spain and Germany, and obviously Africa because of our skin color. We got some African in there. But yeah, we didn't know a whole lot. Like, even I used to ask people like freckles, like, you know, Cubans typically don't have freckles, and no one in my family on either side has freckles. So I had asked her one time, like, do you know of anybody? And it was like 3 aunts, you know, in the past or whatever had from, like, where the heck did my freckles come from? It's such an anomaly.
I forget all about the 23andMe thing. So it ended up being like 80% Spaniard, and then the rest was like the Cuban islands and like that area.
Yeah.
And so it was really interesting that was the time frame. And so then I started thinking like, oh no, I'm from a line of conquistadores from Spain that went over there and pillaged and did some crazy shit. Like, oh no.
Yeah. Yeah. But supposedly we have German in us.
That's interesting. I know that there did show like a little like point something percentage of other stuff, but I didn't even really want to do it. Becca did it. I'm happy I did it. I think it's cool. I never look at it after that initial Spain and Cuba. Man, this is me. Like that was my takeaway from that.
I'm surprised it showed Cuba, because like I didn't think it would narrow it down that much.
It does it by region, so it was like the islands was like 23%.
Yeah.
So it was cool. It was very specific, and I mean, I think that I can definitely see it. It makes sense, right? Spain and Cuba.
Yeah.
And then I watched a documentary recently on Cuba on Netflix. I think you may have told me about it, and it was really good. Like, I already knew some of it, like how the Spaniards came in, they enslaved and demolished 90% of Cuba, and then fucked it essentially back into population, like literally doing that on repeat to get the island back up. as well as slave trade, like they did continue bringing more in. That's a pretty crazy history, right?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
Uh,
Well, you think of that small island, you know, it wasn't going to take care of itself. Somebody
That's
had to
the
come
thing.
in and
Every time, yeah, because then it was Russia, and then it was it was U.S. back
Yeah.
and forth. We had an on again, off again relationship with the U.S.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then the connection with Russia, it was so interesting. Cuba
Yeah.
has always struggled standing straight up.
Yeah.
I wonder if it's education, like, because they have great physicians, they have great medicines, and obviously, like, this is weirdly worded.
Yeah.
The intellectual part of
capacity.
it
Yeah.
is
Yeah.
very there.
Yeah.
Capital wise, you know, they may not be getting the funding that they should be getting.
Yeah.
So I definitely want to put that out there. But yeah, but like they're pushing that.
They're so isolated. Like,
Yeah.
think about even before we went, they would interfere with their little radios so they couldn't get like FM so they could hear. They used to, it was funny because somebody posted it the other day on Instagram and they're like, do you remember Radio Martí? And I'm like, that's right. I totally forgot. And it was the radio station here that would try to get information to the Cubans. Well, of course, they would go in and play with their radios so they wouldn't get, you know. So if you think of an island, if someone doesn't bring in anything, including information, how are they going to know? You know, they're so limited in what they have available to them. And even when we used to go and my mom would bring the trashy Spanish magazines, they would literally go through it to make sure there wasn't anything newsworthy, that it was just strictly, you know, celebrity gossips type stuff. So
Security checks were tight. Like I remember that airport back and forth because we flew all the time.
Yeah.
And the security was tight.
I got in trouble that time for bringing Tintina popcorn, the kernels. You would have thought I brought in drugs. I don't know if you remember that. The guy was like, I can't believe you would do this in front of your child. I'm like, it's popcorn kernels. Like, again, you would have thought I was bringing in heroin. Like, his reaction was like, I'm like, I don't think you can even plant popcorn kernels to get anything, you know, like,
yeah.
But yeah, it's, the scrutiny and the security was crazy.
Yeah. Well, I remember that you had like a process and it was really cool thinking back on it now. Like you would get these giant big black bags and you would fill them with random seasonings and like what was that process? Because then you would take it to the airport, you'd wrap it in like that plastic wrap. Like it was a full-blown thing. Like what was that?
Yeah. Well, you should have seen it before you were born, the process, because they limit so much of what you can bring and weight-wise also. And Yaya would make, you know, being a seamstress, she would make these huge like jackets full with secret compartments. So she would walk like the Marshmallow Man going in the Florida heat, going to Cuba and look like she was, and it was just all stuffed with, because
I remember that. I remember her doing that.
They don't have anything. So we had to bring stuff for ourselves, like the toilet paper, the toothpaste, you know, every medicine that you would think that you would need. I remember trying to get antibiotics for you. And the doctor's like, I can't give you antibiotics if he doesn't have anything, an infection. I'm like, but he could have, and we're going to Cuba. And, you know, it would be like, so we would have to go through a Cuban doctor and get it through basically the black market in Miami that you can buy anything. But so we had to bring everything because, like I said, you used to hear that, oh, I forgot my toothbrush. Let me run out and get it. No, over there, you had to come prepared.
Yeah.
So for ourselves and then everything that we brought to the family. But a lot of the spices was to help Tintina with her little store. She would sell the spices because you couldn't get stuff like that. I enjoyed mostly bringing all in the summer, all the school supplies for the kids. Remember, we would do our little mini store.
That's what I'm saying. It was like a charity. You did so much.
And the kids didn't even want to use the notebooks because they're afraid of using up the paper. And it's so sad. Or the marshmallows, they thought they were erasers. I'm like, no, you could eat it. They had never seen marshmallows or chocolate.
Yeah. I have a few memories of us spending time together, like out by the lake. I miss all my old friends from there. Uh, I really do miss a lot of them. Like
Yeah.
the memories from Cuba, most of them are very positive. I was a terrible person for sure. Always got in trouble. Was very prideful. Was very just an asshole. Like just not a great guy.
No, you weren't.
But I was a
Kids
kid. Oh
love
no,
you.
for sure. The kids loved me, yes. But also, I always felt like how much of that love was like bought.
No,
But,
I don't think so.
no, yeah, they were also they were all awesome. Like I really do have nothing but fond memories from
Yeah.
Cuba.
Yeah.
But right now, what would you say are your biggest projects or things that you find passionate?
Well, you know me, I always like to like fixing up the house. Like when we first moved in, Dwayne was laughing because just during the tour, I was like, and I want to tear this wall down and I want to do this and I want to do that. And
That's crazy.
I like making a space my own. And I used to do a lot of that again to a certain extent because I'm not very good at it when I was by myself. But now that I have him, I just, show him the pictures. I'm like, can you do this? Can you make this? So yeah, I'm passionate about that. Like just making my space more personal and just like a little sanctuary type thing. When you come home, you want to feel chill. And so I enjoy that. And
That's awesome. Yeah, Becca's really into like the handyman stuff. Like she really likes like she wants to fix up the house and stuff. And I want to do it too, but I'm lazy. So like whenever I have downtime, I want to just relax with my downtime.
right.
But I've always liked the fact that my grandfather, Manolo, he would he built his house on his
Yeah.
own, is what you told me. I don't know how true
Yeah.
that is.
Well,
But-
he added to it. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, he
so
could
it
build
was-
a house on his own. That was his job. He did construction. So,
Yeah.
but
But I always like that. And I feel like right now, my day to day, I do a lot of office work, a lot of admin, phone calls, stuff like that. I don't do enough like legitimate work with my hands. I do like chopping wood in the back, but other than that, not a lot. So I've always had a goal to do more of stuff like this, like maybe mechanic, like fix up a car. I'm really interested in things like that. So
Yeah.
fixing up a broken down house is the best thing
yeah.
to do for that because it just always has projects to work on.
Well, it's so easy to get sucked into the lazy. Like that happens to us, but we'll be like, and I'm the same way. Like I used to, and I had stopped. I think when you started maybe middle school, I started back into watching a lot of TV, and you get sucked into just becoming a vegetable in front of the TV, and you stop doing things. And I'm like, okay, this is enough, and I had to stop it. So we find ourselves. And not me, because like I said, I'm almost like semi-retired, but he works 10-hour days. So I feel bad when he comes home and he wants to chill.
And you're like, let's go kayaking.
Right. And then I'm like, or last weekend, we made a balance beam for work for the kids. So I did some cutting, he helped me with the saw and things like that. But he mainly put it together and built it. But yeah. You get sucked into that laziness and it's really easy to fall into it. So you have to push yourself to not do it or to do something, get up off your butt. But when you work that many hours, like you work a lot of hours between all your jobs and working out and the girls and all that. So it's easy to be like, oh yeah, I want to chill.
Yeah. And that's the thing is I'm like, all right, like I try to give myself at least an hour or two on the weekend to like watch TV or whatever. But honestly, my weekend and day-to-day life is all fun. Like I there's not a single hour or thing in my life right now that like I would change. Like I'm enjoying every part of it. I really enjoy the new position. I really like the company that I'm at. I love working with the entire team so far and all the movements that we're making. I've really enjoying the direction that I'm taking Omni HR and the podcast. I'm really enjoying the new people that I've got on the team, but helping us out on the podcast and all of our new hosts. And yeah, like everything is going positive. All the girls are doing well. Like I'm really grateful for this time frame. And I just want to say thank you to you for making all of this possible, Mark.
Oh, well, you're welcome. Makes me happy. That's every parent's dream is and goal is to make your kids have a happy life. That's all there is to it.
Yeah.
And now as a parent, you know that that's the truth. You want to guide them, obviously, or whatever, but your ultimate goal is that their happiness. So
yeah,
it may not always fit what you wanted for them, but as long as they're happy, that's all that matters. Your ego has to not play a role.
yeah, no, for sure, for sure. So you used to love Law and Order, Sound of Music, Grease. You would always read murder novels,
Yes.
mystery murder novels.
Yes. I still love true crime drama. Like that's what I get sucked into. Yes. Which are polar opposites, like Grease and Sound of Music or fluffy musicals.
Yeah.
And The Walking Dead.
Oh yes, The Walking Dead, 100%.
I got hooked into The Walking Dead, which it's not something that I typically, but I like the psychology of it. Like once I started watching it, I don't like the horror stuff. I've never liked horror movies, but I like the psychology of what would happen if, you have those groups of people that work together as a community and a team. And then you have the group of people that will take advantage of everybody and just, so I like that part of it. And yes, still true crime drama.
That's awesome. Yeah. What's the latest thing that you watched that you were a fan of?
We've been watching something that's not true crime or whatever, but we're enjoying it. It's called Paradise on Hulu. It's very political, actually. It's about supposedly we don't even know if it was a nuclear explosion or something that happened in the atmosphere. And so these group of Americans go into this underground bunker but they don't tell people that there's still life out there. So they think that they're the only survivors. So well, it's pretty cool. But we're actually also watching old TV shows.
What are you interested in?
Yeah, we're watching The Mentalist, which I used to watch years ago.
Yeah, James. Yeah. He's great.
Yes, Patrick James. So we've been watching that. So mindless TV sometimes is what you need.
I definitely get that. I'm about to finish The Office. I've never seen it. I've tried the first episode 4 times. On the 4th try, which is this time, I finally am almost at the very end of The Office.
Wow, I've never seen it.
Yeah, it's the first few episodes. You kind of got to get a feel for the show. It's a very interesting show. Like it's weird from other stuff, and you got to level into it. Yeah,
that's why I think I never saw it, because I was like, it doesn't seem interesting to me.
But working in an office, you're just like, wow, that is that kind of person. It's just really funny. I
guess because I've never worked at an office, so.
Yeah. How does that feel? Like, as far as you've never really had a normal 9-to-5 office job?
Yeah. Well, it's weird because I have a student now, and, I'm telling her back in the day, even as far as using a computer, I never learned to type because I was going to be a therapist. So I never took typing. You don't need to type when you're a therapist. And of course, now everything is electronic based. So I used to write my evals, my goals, my notes, everything was handwritten. So I had to learn basic computer skills. So it's just, that's part of what I like. You don't sit, even now I'm up with the kids, like I said, we just got this balance beam. You're always looking for fun things to do because just like with the older people that I used to try to make it fun, I still try to make it fun with the kids because, especially with kids are kids. They're already stuck in a classroom. I'm not going to give them more. Obviously, I still have to work on stuff that they need to do in their classroom because as a therapist, I have to do that. But all of my 30 minutes with them doesn't have to be work related or school related. I can do more fun things, especially the kids that need a lot of the sensory processing things. So we've been using the new balance beam a lot, which they really like. So you just get more out of them too when you make it fun.
Yeah. So. And a lot of people don't know what Easter Seals is. Do you mind doing a little explanation? Because I know they're into a lot of different stuff. Yeah.
Well, they're a not-for-profit, just like your company, and they do a lot. They do, they have an autism program, like they have like a daycare on the clinic, and then they contract out for the schools. So we do the school therapy, but they also have programs for adolescents, like especially transitioning into working. They have this program where they bring young people, still high school age, and maybe introduce them to working at a restaurant or working at a hotel. And then, may start out like doing laundry or things like that, but it teaches them those life skills of having a job and doing a task. And obviously the reward is they get paid for it and hopefully get a job. But they offer a lot of programs. They just bought a farm here, so they're doing equestrian therapy as well. And I think different Easter Seals throughout the country probably have different programs, so I can't speak to what everybody is doing, but yeah. I really enjoy it.
That's hilarious. I just realized Becca's mom also works in the nonprofit space. So all of us, everyone, at least someone in the family is working in a nonprofit bettering the community. That's pretty awesome.
Yeah. Yeah, that is pretty cool.
Yeah.
3 out of 3.
Yeah. Everyone.
Like our little family group, 3 out of 3.
So that's awesome. I guess it just shows like we want to move humanity forward. Like that's the end goal.
Yeah.
That's always that's hilarious. If you could do one thing that would better improve your life, what would it be?
Right now?
Yeah, like if there was one thing that was just like you could snap your fingers and it would just make your life better, what do you think it would be?
That's a tough one. Well, I need to exercise more, so I need to improve my health.
All right.
That's
health
one of those things that once you stop, like, I'm not sedentary by any means, but compared to what I was doing, I was doing a lot of the rowing and hurt my knee because, of course, my age. So I stopped for like 3 weeks. And have I started again? No, I have not. Every morning, I'm like, okay, today we're going to start, But, it's important to keep fit, especially as you get older. So I definitely want to make that a priority. I just, you feel better overall. Plus, good for you.
Yeah. What's your favorite? You went through an interesting life of physical fitness, health education. Like you were always in the healthcare space and you were always doing some like workout style, like we got P90X and like, like all other stuff. Yeah. Like, so what would you say? Do you think that your mindset has changed? Like have you evolved mentally your kind of like physical education mindset throughout the years?
I like the exercise that doesn't feel like exercise. So I like doing like Zumba and yoga, and even the rowing was fun. Except it's a little monotonous. So I would try to listen to like audiobooks. But
nice.
Yeah,
podcasts.
And I like light weightlifting. That's like the one exercise that I don't mind. That's exercise. But in general, I like things like kayaking, paddle. I like it to not feel like exercise.
Gotcha.
So I love Zumba. I just can't find one here that I really like. So I've been doing sometimes on TV, but it's not the same thing. It's better to go somewhere. So
I
yeah.
agree. Becca wants us to go to a class. I mean, we're gonna go and I'm sure have fun, but we've gone before. Like we've gone and done those class groups. They're good. Yeah, like you definitely work out. It's nice to kind of feel your body. Like you're not jumping in your day-to-day life, right? Like you're not throwing punches out and you're not dancing like into all these weird different forms in your day-to-day. And just doing that activity alone, it like wakes something up in you. So I definitely am pro those forms of exercise.
Well, music to me is such a, like, I'll be feeling down, for whatever reason. Sometimes it's just weather related. I notice, I'm very much, I could have seasonal depression. Like if I lived somewhere where it was cloudy and rainy and snowy, whatever, I could, because I see myself change. And I'll put some music, obviously, that I like, and my mood just like that. Like, because to me, especially like salsa or, the type of music that we listen to, I feel like you can't be sad because you start like moving and singing along. And it's like, you can't be sad and listen to that. So it's like, so that's part of
awesome.
why
I love that analogy. Yeah.
It's like, okay, I feel better now. I was kind of down 20 minutes ago, and now I'm like, okay, life is good again.
Awesome. Yeah. What's your favorite salsa song and artist right now?
Oh, that's so hard. I don't really have a favorite. I still have my same group of people that I like. Mark Anthony.
Suavemente, Elvis Crespo.
Yeah, all those people. Yeah, the same.
All right. Top 5 music that you listen to right now. It can be any genre. Top 5, like, what's the 5 most listened to songs or groups?
Well, I still have to listen to my Elvis periodically. Like I did a lot of Elvis during Christmas because I love his Christmas stuff. You know me, you always make fun of me because I listen to my old stuff all the time. So it doesn't really, the other day, because I listen to audiobooks sometimes as I'm driving because I have a long drive, and a new song came out on the radio and automatically and I never even heard of the singer. I'm trying to think of but it's Out of Control, or I Lose Control. And it has such a great, like almost jazzy feel to it. And I'm like, oh, I really like that. But I typically just listen to my old stuff.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I do the same thing.
Ricky Martin, Enrique Iglesias. So it's like,
I love it.
My old repertoire.
Yeah, I do the same thing. The songs are different. I listen to like some musicals and I listen to like some rock and, a mixture of hip hop, and I even got some Disney songs thrown in there just for good measure. Yeah, like I like to listen to a very large array of music.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, yeah, typically I do too. Like if I had to say country, I'd go old country like Kenny Rogers. I used to love him. But yeah, it depends on my mood, but I have the same Billy Joel or Bon Jovi. If I'm
Billy Joel, I'm a big Billy Joel guy.
Yeah, you taught yourself the Piano Man.
Yeah.
On the guitar.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Very poorly. Yeah. Let's not make it anything more than it was.
But still, that's an achievement. I couldn't teach myself something like that.
I guess I don't even remember learning Piano Man. I remember I was trying to learn Hotel California, and I never put in the effort to learn it.
Yeah,
that's all I remember.
You did Piano Man. You got really into that one.
Oh, interesting. I do like Piano Man a lot. It used to be one of my favorite songs. I've noticed it like generationally. As I've gotten older, there are like certain songs that I define for that time period. I don't know, it's weird.
Yeah.
But when you're like in the military in Mexico, like Hotel California just kind of it just kind of works, right? And then so on and so forth. Like right now, I was in a Vienna phase. Now I'm moving out of it. Like I don't know. It's Vienna by Billy Joel.
Okay, I don't think I know that one.
Maybe. Oh, it's great. It's my favorite song right now.
Okay, I'll have to look it up.
Yep. But yeah, I don't know. one of the reasons why I really like Billy Joel is because his songs, they're all about life. You know, like Vienna. I mean, even moving out, like all of these are about like, hey, if you don't go for it, then nothing's going to be given to you.
Yeah.
And I really like
Yeah.
that.
That's one artist that I always wanted to see that I never got to see in concert because the
Yeah.
tickets are so expensive. But
Yeah, Billy Joel is a mega star for sure.
yeah.
You ready to end it here?
Yeah.